A nation is a balance between its institutions. If that balance is disturbed, the nation is disturbed. That is the central idea. What are the institutions that make up the Indian nation? There are elected institutions, Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabhas, Panchayats. There is the judiciary. There is a supporting free press. These institutions together, they hold the nation in place. And what we have seen over the last 6 years is a systematic attack on all these institutions. Democracy does not die with a bang. It dies slowly. And I'm sad to tell you that democracy in India is dead. It doesn't exist anymore. It is dead because one organization, the RSS, has combined with huge finances to penetrate and disturb and destroy our institutional balance. That is what has happened. There are many, many different manifestations of this. Misuse of sedition law, killing of people, threatening of people. These are all symptoms of the problem. But the problem is that concentration of capital has combined with the organization of the RSS and has disturbed, and I would say actually destroyed, the institutional balance in the country. There are multiple other balances that have also been destroyed. Remember that India is a union of states. So all the states come together to form the nation. When you destroy the institutional balance of the country, you also destroy the negotiation between the states. Because if all the states do not have equal say, then the power balance between those states is disturbed. And that is a serious problem for any country. This is what we are facing. And I think the spirit of this meeting is to understand what is happening and to defend the Indian nation and India's institutions from this brutal assault that is taking place. And I think that is why we are having this conversation today. Please feel free to give me your opinions and your questions.
Hello. We have some questions. Hello. There's some questions which are this thing. So can I call V.A. Krishna Kumar?
I always have a question, especially when I used to be working in Uttar Pradesh in campaigning, and it's really hot. And I have the luxury of coming here in a shirt, and you have to wear this suit and shirt and all this. So I'm feeling hot just looking at you. Sorry.
Mr. V.A. Krishna Kumar?
After BJP came to power, they have either purchased the MLAs or threatened the MLAs by NIA, CBI and income tax. And that's why the MLAs are switched over to BJP. Though the people give full-minded to the Congress MLAs, but because of this threatening, they have switched over their loyalty to BJP. This is what happened recently in Pondicherry. So my question is whether the state leaders fails to choose right persons for MLA candidates and how to curb this.
Choosing the right MLA candidate, please sit. Choosing the right MLA candidate is just one component of the problem. If we look at Madhya Pradesh, attempt in Rajasthan, Goa, attempt going on in Jharkhand, Pondicherry, Arunachal, these are all Congress governments. These are all governments where people gave the mandate to us. And concentration of capital took the mandate away from us. I know the amount of money that was thrown at the MLAs in Madhya Pradesh. I know the amount of money that was thrown at the MLAs in Rajasthan. We are talking massive amounts of money. Right? And so, when you have one party that is fighting the election with thousands and thousands of crores, and you have other political parties that are not allowed to raise finance, that financiers who would like to support opposition parties come and say that, look, we understand what you're standing for. We support what we are standing for. But if we give you 1 rupee, our business will be destroyed. I've had that conversation where they say, we want to support you, but if we support you, it means that our business will be destroyed and so we cannot support you. So on one side, you have capture of all institutions. You have a monopoly on finances. You have a monopoly on the media. And on the other side, you've got political parties that are not allowed to compete. When they form governments against all odds, their mandates are taken away from them. So, where is this heading? It is, see, as a political person, as a political leader, normally, in a democracy, I require institutional support. I require a media that is objective. I require a judiciary that is aggressive. I require the ability to speak in the Parliament House. All those have been taken away from us. We are not, I'm telling you, we are not allowed to speak in Parliament. Literally, we're not allowed to speak in Parliament. So where is this heading? There is only one way this thing is going to get resolved, and that is mass action. When the ordinary citizen of this country realizes that this country now is not being run by his mandate, but is being run by force, is being run undemocratically. And that is where this is going. And you can see this beginnings of this mass movement, you can see it. It's in the borders of Delhi when they passed the farm laws. So the stirrings are there. But as a political person, in my entire career before 2014, I had never imagined a situation where I will have no institutional support whatsoever. So I've given you a long answer because, frankly, even if we put in the right MLAs in place, it's not enough. Because the power is so high, strong and so heavy that even that MLA will not be able to sustain it. And then the question arises, what happens after we come to power? What happens? Because there is full penetration of all institutions. There is penetration of the judiciary. There is penetration of the media. There's penetration of the bureaucracy. So what do we do once we come to power? Because we're going to have to deal with 15 years of judges who have been placed into the judiciary because they support one political party. So this is going to be a huge challenge for this country going forward.
Okay. There's also a related question from VZ Victor about the anti-defection law. Mr. Victor in the audience?
Was I just want to say, was any law can be made to amend the anti-defection law? In case MLAs are just going to different parties, but I just want to say, in case the parties, the voters are voted only for our party, but MLAs they shift to different parties. But we want to say the particular MLAs and MPs should not be allowed to go to different parties. They should be disqualified at the early stage itself.
Yes.
I
I mean, you can make the anti-defection law stronger, you can disqualify them, but remember one thing. In order to do that, you need parliament. And you're not going to get parliament right now.
Yes, sir.
So, I agree with that idea. But again, even to enforce that idea, we need an institutional structure. We don't have it. So, now India is entering a phase very much like when we were fighting the British, that we cannot rely on the institutions to protect our democracy anymore. There is only one place on whom we can rely, and that is the people of the country. There's no other place. And I say this with all seriousness, because I've been dealing with this problem, and I first-hand see the depth of this problem. Absolutely, we should have laws that don't allow MLAs to move. But first we need a functioning parliament. We need a judiciary that's not completely penetrated by the RSS and the BJP. We need a press that raises this issue and says, listen, look, our Madhya Pradesh government goes, and it is essentially bought. Nobody in the media says anything. Our government in Arunachal goes, it is bought. Nobody says anything. We need today, if the Congress party wants to win an election, the only way to win the election is if it has a 2/3 majority. If it wins the election by 10, 15 seats, it's not a win, it's a loss. Because BJP just comes, buys the people and has its own government. That's what we are facing. And I'm sure you're also feeling it in your work. And you can see it in the nation. As people who are questioning and challenging the RSS, BJP are threatened, pushed around. I'm lucky. I'm lucky because there is nothing that they have on me. That's why I'm lucky. Because I had the good sense through my whole political career to be an honest person. That's why they can't touch me. There's nothing they can do to me. Right? That's why I can speak to you. Because no ED, no CBI, no nothing is going to affect me. And that's also why, by the way, that 24/7 the BJP attacks me. Because they understand very well that this man is not corrupt and we have no leverage on this man.
Okay, next question is from K. Raja Prabhakaran, advocate from Madurai. Is he here in the audience?
Respected sir, there is a provision in the Industrial Dispute Act about the unfair labor practice, right? Employing the employee for more than 8 hours duty and employ him and comparing him in other than the recruited and appointed post. And there is a provision also in punishing the employee. But till date...
In punishing the employer.
Employer, yeah, I correct it, yes. Till date, not even the press, or not in the press, not a single employee is punished under this act. Can we discuss this point in Parliament for effective implementation of this act?
I'm happy to discuss that in Parliament.
Thank you,
We
sir.
can do that, and I'll raise it for you if you want. It is also an indication of the concentration of power in this country. It's an indication of the concentration of finance in this country. Look, essentially, as I said in Parliament, 4 people are running this country. 4. Right? That's all. हम 2, हमारे 2. And everywhere these 4 people's imprint is there.
Yes, Miss Vanaja is here. Questions?
நான் வந்து தமிழ்லேயே பேசுகிறேன். ஜட்ஜஸ்லாம் வந்து ஏதாவது ஒரு பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டிஸ் வாங்கிட்டு அவங்க மேலே வந்துடுறாங்க. இதில் என்ன சிக்கல்னா, ஜட்ஜஸ் வந்து ரிட்டையர்மெண்ட் ஆனதுக்கு பிறகு பொலிட்டிக்ஸில் வந்தீங்கன்னா மக்களுக்கு என்ன விதமான ஒரு நியாயம் கிடைக்கும்? அதான் என்னுடைய கேள்வி.
Question is about post-retirement sinecures for judges. They accept political appointments from the government after they retire.
Yeah. And we've seen examples of this, where judges take decisions that the government wants, and then they are given plum posts. Would you like to just translate that? Would you just like to translate it for her? She can understand. Oh, okay. So, and we've seen examples of this. I think at a minimum, we should have a cooling off period of a certain amount of years where judges cannot be given these type of posts. At a minimum. Because otherwise the whole incentive structure is in question. If the judge is going to be given a plum post after 3 or 4 cases, it will influence how he takes those decisions. So I think at a minimum we should do that. What would you like?
I agree.
But would you like to add anything to what I said?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Next question is from S. Annadurai, Advocate Rani Pet.
Sir, your views on women reservation bill in parliament and assemblies.
My view is reflected in this room. I am having to look carefully. 1, 2, 3. I am having to look very carefully to find the ladies. And I think that in every institution in our country, we need to have more women. And we need to give them more space. So I'm fully for women's reservation. I would like to see more and more women in the judicial system. And of course, I'm for women's reservation in Parliament and Vidhan Sabha. You need, but let me say, you need more than reservation. Indian men need to change the way they look at Indian women. And we can keep doing reservation. But unless Indian men start to view Indian women with the same lens that they view themselves, the real change is not going to happen. You agree with me? No? So I think it is also it's giving women positions, creating the atmosphere where women can get the positions, but it is also changing our attitude. And it's not only in the judicial system, it's across the country, in every space, because women with all due respect to my brothers here, women in India are treated very badly by men.
Okay, the next question is pertinent to all of us here about laws delays by Z. Rizwan Hussain.
Hello, sir.
Hello?
And we see that many cases are pending in the courts, millions of them. And litigants spend their entire lifetime running from pillar to post, expecting justice, sometimes 2 generations, 3 generations. So, in my opinion, there must be a process where justice can be given speedily. So, when you come to power, God willing,
I mean,
how do you plan to deal with this?
you probably understand the judicial system. All of you understand it better than I do. But as an outsider looking in, I think increasing the number of judges would be one thing that would be useful. Making sure that at the lower levels, our judicial process moves faster, that would be another thing we could do. What are the type of things that you would suggest?
Yeah, there should be some time limit for the cases and judges, more judges like you said, and also appeal process. So there is lot of appeals. So this should be shortened so that people can get justice.
Yeah.
So this is what I think.
Why are there so many appeals?
I think that's the opportunity given. Appeals are because there is dissatisfaction on
Right.
the judgments.
So it just goes on, it drags
Yes,
the whole process
yes.
on.
So there are a lot of loopholes that are exploited.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. But do you think that we need to sort of look at the judicial system and have a sort of broader reform of the judicial system?
Yes, that's necessary.
That we should sit down and sort of once and for all sort of do some big picture things to the judicial system?
Yes, and I'm sure that will happen when you come to power.
Well, we'll try.
Yes, we are with you.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a question related to this on the Indian Judicial Service, whether it should be there, from A. Brahma.
In our nation, a administrative side, IAS, IFS, IRS, but in judicial side, IJS, Indian Judicial Service. So, a lot of youngsters will come to the power to the people. But in judicial side, give an opportunity to the directly come to forward to manner to the youth. Form a IJS, Indian Judicial Service. So, you come to power, please do this.
I think as a supplement to the other streams, I think that might be a good idea and it's something that we could consider.
Thank you.
We could look into.
Thank you. Lot of thanks.
I'm told we have time for 2 more questions. This is a very frequent question you might be getting on electronic voting machines. About this, there's a question from M. Barnabas.
Dear Rahulji, I want to ask a question that the electronic voting machine is dropped in so many developed countries, but in our country, still using that machines, even though it is malpracticable. Are you accepting it? What is your opinion?
Look, EVMs, as you said, the world over, have been shown to have problems. Many developed countries refuse to use them because they feel that they are open to manipulation. One of my biggest issues with the EVMs is that the Election Commission doesn't give us access of the type we would like to study those machines. Whenever the Congress party has asked, show us the machine, let us look at the machine properly, let us do random checks on the machine, we are told you can't do that. So, I would be comfortable with the EVM if I could see that it was open to checking, that it was transparent, that it was accessible to political parties. So that's the first thing. Fundamentally, I'm not entirely convinced myself that EVMs are 100% secure. I don't believe that. I think there are problems with EVMs. But a first step can be the election commission saying, okay, political parties are having doubts about these machines. We will give them full access to the machines, to look at the machines, to study the machines, and we will allow random checking of machines by neutral observers. That they don't allow. Then it makes me wonder. Then I start to ask the question, why are they not making this machine transparent?
Thank you.
Okay, there are also other questions about the present laws. This is from Advocate Jijish from Tiruchirappalli Bar Association.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
What is your personal opinion about CAA Act and the protest against farmers?
We think the CAA is discriminatory. And we don't agree with it, we don't support it. It's discriminatory on many counts. On the Farmers Acts, these acts are designed to wreck the Indian agricultural system and hand over the benefits of that agricultural system to 2 or 3 big corporates in India. The first law is designed to destroy the markets, farmers' markets. The second law is designed to allow as much hoarding as the largest corporates in the land want. And the third law basically says that if a farmer contests, then the farmer cannot do it in a court of law. So we are completely against these 3 laws. We do, however, feel that the system, agricultural system, needs to be looked at and it needs to be reformed. But the reform cannot be done by destroying the system. And if any reform is going to be done, the stakeholders of the system, the farmers, laborers, small traders, they have to be involved in a discussion from which the reform will evolve. So we're against these farm bills and we are protesting against it, we are fighting it across the country.
One more question on secularism. These will be the last questions we are taking because Mr. Gandhi has to proceed for his next functions. So, from X Selvam Soundar.
Sir, secularism is the basic structure of our constitution. Sir, now the minority institutions are facing, very often facing problems, sir. Do you think there is a danger to the secularism in our country now?
There is a full-scale assault on secularism in this country. And the RSS and the BJP are leading that assault. You said secularism is a foundation of our constitution. It's much more than that. Secularism is the foundation of our culture and our history. If you go back into time, you will see that this country has always been a sensitive, compassionate country that embraces different types of ideas. So this is not just an attack on the constitution, it is an attack on our history and on our culture as well. And I think it is very important that it is stopped in its tracks. and that all of us fight this assault. I think, in the beginning I told you that our institutions are under attack, our nation is under attack. But I must tell you that I believe that you are the people who work in the judiciary, the lawyers, the judges, who have a very, very important role to play. Just like we have an important role to play, just like politicians have an important role to play, you also have a very important role to play. If you stand up to this ideology, if you stand up to the corruption, if you stand up to the pressure, you will do a service for this nation. And that's why I came here to have a conversation with you, to tell you that you're very, very important for this fight. You are, as they say in military speak, you are force multipliers. You are not one individual, you are a force multiplier. So, slowly,
last
slowly,
question.
slowly,
we
slowly,
can't-
I'm
we
going to
already
learn
had-
Tamil.
No, I think we'll just take one more question. We have it in this thing. The question, this is also a frequent question asked, that the Congress party is sometimes not good at advertising its achievements, even when they were in government and this thing. So I think JF Arthur Joy. Is JF Arthur Joy here?
On border issue.
Sir, a small suggestion.
Yeah.
We need a strong media support.
Yeah.
Congress has to launch a new channels, newspapers and FM radio to reach your day-to-day activities, to reach normal people. Because we saw last 2 years that you have been interacted with the farmers, with the fishermen, with the social workers, everything and all we are seeing. Just we are receiving the things through the Instagram, Facebook and WhatsApp. Every channel has been purchased by the fascism Modi and Amit Shah is hiding and suppressed all the facts and the good things created by you. Because you are a very kind-hearted and well-educated and not fearing to face the media, everything and all. We are very much impressed by your activities to the poor people. You are feeling the pain of each and every citizen. So, we need to interact. A useless fellow is interacting in the radio named Man Ki Baat. That useless fellow, that useless speech we don't want to see his face. But we want to interact with you.
See, I must point out something to you.
Yes.
See,
Young dynamic leader-
everything. Sorry, conclude. Then I'll. Please conclude. Sorry to interrupt.
We need a young, dynamic, kind-hearted, and who knows the pain of the poor people, everything and all. Like your father, Rajiv Gandhi ji. So, we want to make an interaction and made advertisements in the newspapers and make TV channels, everything and all. We need a strong media support because the media has been purchased by them.
Yeah.
Everything are suppressed and hid by the media.
Yes.
Even though now the current medias are the way it's very, sorry to say, prostitute medias. I'm very sorry to say.
Yeah.
But I feel very...
Sir, I think...
See, you said something interesting. You said the Prime Minister is useless. No, but I want to correct this slightly. See, everything has some use or the other. Everything has a use. Right? The Prime Minister, the question is not whether he is useful or useless. The question is to who is he useful? See, I am useful to farmers of this country. I am useful to poor people in this country. I am useful to women in this country. I am useful to youngsters in this country. Narendra Modi is useful to two people. He is extremely useful because those two people are using the Prime Minister of India to increase their wealth dramatically. And believe me, when the time comes, they will throw him like that. Right? So it is important we have to understand our opponent. He is useless to the poor people. He is very useful to hum do hamare do. Thank you.
Sir, can we invite closing remarks from your side? Because
Yeah.
I'm told your schedule is...
So, okay, last question. Okay, border issue. Let's do the border issue.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gandhi. And you are I understand you are in the Defense Committee also. That's the question becomes very relevant. Now, my government was telling us that India never was intruded by the Chinese army. But 20 brave soldiers of my country lost their life to save the Indian soil. Now, day before yesterday, my foreign minister says, both India and China withdrew from the border line. I am not able to understand. Because if China has not interrupted into India, why it should withdraw? In any case, India has not intruded into the Chinese territory. Why should India withdraw from its borderline?
Yeah.
That's my question.
This is a absolute fact. If you would like, I can go into a little bit of detail about what happened on the border and what is happening on the border. Essentially, the Chinese occupied certain strategic areas in our country. They first tested the idea in Doklam. So they tested the idea to see how would India react in Doklam, and they noticed that India didn't react. And then they carried out the idea again in Ladakh. Also, I believe in Arunachal Pradesh. The first reaction of the Prime Minister to incursions into our territory. They have occupied more than 1,000 square kilometers of Indian territory. The first reaction of our Prime Minister was that nobody has come into India. That indicated to the Chinese that the Prime Minister of India is scared of them. That was the message. If I come into your house and you come outside and you say nobody is in my house, I will understand very quickly that he is scared of me. So first maybe I'm in your kitchen, next I will be sitting in your sitting room. So he indicated to the Chinese that he is scared of them. And the Chinese understood it. And since then, the Chinese have negotiated on that principle. They know that the Prime Minister of India cannot stand up to them. And mark my words, our land in Depsang, which is the most important land, is not going to come back to us under this government. The Prime Minister will not get that land back. He will pretend that everything has been sorted out, but India is going to lose that territory. And I will say another thing. Giving this type of message to the Chinese is very dangerous for the future. Because the Chinese are not going to stop in Ladakh. The Chinese, the Indian government under the Congress always dealt with the Chinese without any hesitation. The Chinese understood very well that India cannot be pushed around. Even in 2013, when the Chinese entered into India, we took actions that forced them back, that forced them to compromise. We went and occupied other spaces. So they have now understood that the Prime Minister of India does not have the courage to face them. And this is a very dangerous thing for our country. I keep saying it. The media keeps attacking me. I will keep saying it. They will keep attacking me. But you will see that the Chinese view of the Prime Minister is now set in stone. They know that he's going to compromise India's interests when pressured.
So you want to take that lady at the back, yeah.
Yeah. I think we have to conclude now because I've got other places to go. I'd like to let me just finish. Let me finish. I'd like to thank you all for coming here, for listening to me, for giving me your ideas. You mentioned about speeding up the cases. I think that's a very important thing that we have to look into. And I want to tell you that we are all involved in this fight together. I am here to work with you, and I'm confident that you will work with me to make sure that our country is safe. Thank you very much.